Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Leading Change. My name is Emma, and I've got Shireen with me, and we're going to be talking about how different backgrounds lead into technology and insurance and how that might impact the way that we're onboarding people as customers to a technology that they're implementing. But before we get started, can you give everybody a real quick introduction?
Absolutely. Thank you, Emma, first of all, for having me. I'm Shireen Braun, and I work at Insurance Quantified. We're an underwriting technology company that provides timely, actionable data to commercial P&C underwriting teams so they can make faster and more informed decisions. We work with carriers and MGA clients, and we help them assess risks, make sure that they're meeting their underwriting guidelines. We help them be more responsive to broker partners and ultimately improve their odds of winning really good business. And Emma, I personally actually lead our client services function. And so that includes our in-house customer success teams. And we're a diverse team of technologists, former underwriters, project managers, relationship managers. And we work alongside our clients' underwriting teams, really making sure that they're meeting their business goals, leveraging our product and services as quickly as possible. So excited to talk to you a little bit more about what we do and about my background.
Thank you for joining me. And I always love hearing these kind of origin stories because I'm not from a traditional insurance technology background either. So can we get started by having you share a little bit with all of the folks that are joining us for the interview about what your background looks like and how that feels like it kind of matches up with insurance technology?
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about this before this program, and just to share with the audience, I was mentioning, like you, Emma, that I actually have a liberal arts and social sciences background. And I studied anthropology and linguistics in my undergrad. And I studied that because I have a love for cross-cultural studies and human behavior and languages. And most of my classmates pursued careers actually in teaching and in academia, as we were talking about. And I actually tutored quite a bit through college and after college, but I actually went a different path right after college. And I found myself in business, particularly in the early to late 2000s. I was working in financial media and technology. And those early days, it was like learning a new language for me. Financial services was going through really the initial wave of digitization. And it's just, all of it just fascinated me. And so I've actually been finding myself really drawn to industries like insurance that are going through change and that have a really rich lexicon. So insurance is an industry that's been ripe for continuous innovation this last decade. It's an industry that's built on a foundation of trust, risk mitigation, and meaningful relationships. And so for all these reasons, working in insurance technology specifically is a really good fit for me and rewarding work. I always like to tell people, because, anthropology is definitely a different background, as you mentioned, Emma, and I always share with folks that, anthropologists attempt to find meaning and they attempt to help understand change. And we look to analyze and understand differences and evolution. And I really feel as if that's exactly what I get to do each day. Because I work alongside underwriting teams in insurance that are evolving by their use of technology. So that bridge and connection, although very different path, has been really meaningful in my work.
So then when we take a look at, if I want to tap into like that anthropology side,
Yeah.
I talk a fair amount about this, that like this need or this struggle with change is something that's very innate to humans. So can you talk a little bit more about why change is so difficult and specifically with our exaggerated pace of change recently?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And for me, I feel that first thing that comes to mind as to, and this is kind of why I was really drawn to this, program that you're doing, talking about leading change. For me, change is so hard because it really draws upon deep emotions. Deep emotions get spurred during change because change brings uncertainty. And with uncertainty, that fear. And, one of the things that actually we learn in anthropology and other social sciences is that as humans, we're really drawn to predominantly the more familiar. We're drawn to what's known and what's understood and to rituals. And so for those reasons, for those really deep emotions, change can be, not an easy thing. And to your question about, what are we seeing today and why do we feel as if potentially it's exasperated? For me, reflecting on the last 5 years, we've seen change manifest in many ways, but in some unique ways, if you think about it, we've all lived through a global pandemic, which has absolutely impacted us in new ways in the workplace. And then we're definitely seeing the pace of technology and innovation continue to accelerate. There's no doubt. Technologies like AI that's been around for a little while is just evolving drastically and rapidly, and it's becoming more accessible as one example. AI, technologies like AI is impacting all sectors, all industries. So you have these macro factors and some of these technological evolutions that are really exacerbating the pace for me, from what I'm seeing. But Emma, when I was kind of thinking about this and thinking about talking about change with you on this segment, the question I always like to ask myself and what I find myself always reflecting upon is how can we leverage change and technology as an...
So what I want to talk with you a little bit more about now is this idea specific to your role. So you mentioned how you're focused on working directly with your customers and driving success with them. Can you share a little bit about how your background has impacted how you are managing onboarding with your customers and working through impacting that today?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. Reflecting back on my background, I really think that the following skills has helped me quite a bit in my current role. Number one, it starts with listening skills. And then drawing upon being able to be empathetic and alignment building skills. I'm always looking to surround myself with a diverse team. And I think that really kind of came back from is something that I'm always searching for based off of having a really diverse background. So I like to surround myself with diverse individuals. And I'm always asking clarifying questions, confirming up front, goals, what are people's desires, fears. And I think those skills overall and my background has helped me and our team at Insurance Quantified earn trust, really, to earn the trust to lead our clients through change, which is really what implementing or helping clients adopt technology is all about. So for me, one example, the most important phase for me of a client journey is the onboarding phase. I tell this to people all the time. This onboarding for us actually at Insurance Quantified, for example, is the time when we customize our product to meet very specific business rules and client requirements. And it's when we introduce our software and services to end users for the very first time. And so I tell folks all the time, I tell my team and others, the major objective for onboarding projects is to help eliminate fear, to help eliminate the fear of the unknown that we were just talking about and really lead them through change. So I didn't tell you about this prior, but I thought what I would do is share some 5 top tips for a successful technology onboarding project.
I love it. Go for it.
Does that work? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So here we go. I'm going to do a top 5 list for successful technology onboarding projects. Okay. So number 1, present change and the new as a natural evolution from the old. I heard this piece of advice once. I read it in a book about change management. And I was like, wow, that really resonates for me and for what we're doing in insurance and what we're doing in technology. This concept of, change being really a natural evolution resonated for me. And it helped me actually understand that in order to do that, you actually have to really understand what your client's day-to-day looks like. What are their goals? What are their needs? What are their wants? And then it allows you to help understand how your technology is enabling their jobs. And again, that this technology is just a natural extension or evolution of what they're doing. So that was tip number one. Tip number two is really to communicate as clearly as possible the end state. So we always talk about, help our clients visualize what success looks like, help them understand what this impact of change will have. Tip number three is to introduce the concept of a journey. We like to always talk about helping our clients celebrate milestones of change. And in order to do that, you got to provide short and iterative goalposts. Tip number four is to create opportunities as quickly as possible for your clients to self-learn. And I think this really kind of draws upon Emma, some of the teaching background, helping others learn, but then also be teachers themselves is a really powerful transition. And so one of the things that we do at Insurance Quantified is we actually have end users be testers during a testing phase. And we want to create a safe environment for learning. We want to allow individuals and end users to ask questions, provide feedback. And this really helps build and earn trust. And it develops champions of change actually within an organization. When you bring folks in early and you help them learn and self-learn. So then the last one, however, so tip number 5 is to be responsive. You got to maintain and further foster trust by being a continued partner that your clients can rely on when they get stuck, when they have questions, when they have needs. And so what I've learned over time that these 5 sort of tips for success can really become a continuous loop, and it becomes a continuous loop of trust and then development and progress. So I hope others will find some meaning out of these tips as well.
And I love that all of these tips were really human-centric as opposed to technology. So obviously you were talking about the tools, but you were much more focused on the human aspect of it, which I think is something that we often forget. And I'm obviously screaming it from a rooftop on a regular basis, but we often forget it because we talk about digital transformation with digital being the lead in. And so I really love that was like the central theme of all 5 of those tips, and that you brought in something so actionable for people. So thank you so much. And thank you for joining me for the entire conversation. For anybody that's not already, make your way over to our LinkedIn, give her a follow, and make sure to reach out to either one of us with any questions that you have. But thank you again for joining me, and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you, Emma.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Leading Change. If you liked what you saw, be sure to subscribe and come back weekly for more expert interviews on digital transformation, change management, and emerging technologies.